Chapter 622, Temporary Contract. Upon hearing Amirius Revelt's descriptive words, which weren't a question, Bilt's forehead instantly broke out into a cold sweat. He turned agape, hoping to explain himself, but finally he plopped to his knees and said under the indescribable pressure, "Admiral, Your Excellency, the tramp from before suddenly died of an illness. I had no choice but to find an adventurer who can shapeshift." At this moment in time, Klein wasn't too nervous. This was because Amirius Revelt had already noticed him during the banquet. There was no reason for him to only recognize him as a beyonder only now. For him to agree to their meeting and not directly avoid the risk meant that he didn't mind who Bilt had hired. Not worried at all. This is the confidence of a demigod. Otherwise, his beyonder pathway is able to avert disaster ahead of time. Klein raised his head with great difficulty as he cast his gaze towards the Navy admiral beside him. "Quite strong," Amirius Revelt commented without an expression. He continued looking at the genuflecting Bilt and said, "Do not try to use your under-the-table smarts in front of me. An ordinary person and a beyonder in this world are different, and I'm a follower of order, making me be able to be certain of this. Of course, it's identical to what's written in the information. This admiral is inclined to expounding on certain things. I have to remember this point. This is a completely different style from me and J.M. and Sparrow." Klein retracted his gaze in thought as he cast it to the ground, as if he was unable to withstand the pressure. Amirius Revelt took one step forward. "Lying is the first mistake you committed. Not being cautious is the second. A tramp you spent a great deal of effort on to groom had suddenly died, and all of a sudden, an adventurer who can shapeshift appears in front of you. Don't you find it a coincidence?" "Yes, it's quite coincidental." Klein nearly said the same thing. If not for his confirmation above the gray fog, he would have suspected if he was being set up by a legendary creature or a Grade 0 sealed artifact. Bilt's pupils constricted as he snapped to his senses. He discovered that due to his horror and fear, all he thought about was to grasp at the final life-saving straw. He had lost the caution brought about from his experience, having not considered whether J.M. and Sparrow's appearance was a coincidence or not. The tramp had suddenly died on the day he arrived at the Sweet Lemon Bar. The more Bilt thought about it, the more he felt as though he had fallen for some intricately planned trap. As Amirius Revelt watched Bilt's expression change with enlightenment and regret, he nodded gently and said, "My father, the deceased Earl Revelt, once taught me this. He said to pardon the first mistake of a subordinate. Bilt, you should be thankful for his benevolence." Bilt's tense mood eased instantly as he felt extremely moved. He thought Amirius Revelt, who was closer to a god than man, would execute him on the spot so as to warn all the adventurers who were under him. Who knew that he would choose to pardon him? "Your Excellency, Bilt was momentarily unable to form a sentence. Amirius maintained his stern expression and said in a deep voice, "There's a second half of the saying, that is, punish them for their second mistake. Bilt, do you know what you should do in the future?" The genuflecting Bilt immediately straightened his back and pressed his right fist to his left chest. "I'll be utmost loyal to you, Your Excellency." Amirius nodded and turned to Klein. "What's your name?" "That depends on which identity you're asking about." Klein lampooned inwardly and calmly replied, "J.M. and Sparrow." Amirius Revelt suddenly fell silent for 2 seconds, as the atmosphere in the sundry room seemed to freeze. Just as Klein couldn't help but feel uneasy, Amirius finally said, "So it's you." "Your Excellency, you sound as though you know me. I'm just an ordinary military informant. I only exchanged some bounty through you. I haven't even made any reimbursement claims." Klein silently mumbled as he felt less and less confident. Amirius nodded and said to Bilt and Klein, "The plan will proceed as per normal. However, we need to sign a contract." "A contract?" Klein resisted the pressure with great difficulty as he raised his head to look at Amirius. Amirius didn't provide a further explanation. He lifted up the paper and pen he had long prepared from the windowsill and wrote something on it. Every time he made contact with his pen, a golden glow would emit. The solemnity and holiness made it seem like he was penning a law. Klein narrowed his eyes slowly as his vision turned blurry. He couldn't help but lower his head again. After an unknown period of time, Amirius stopped writing and picked up a piece of paper. He said to Klein, "Sign your name at the end. If the conditions aren't satisfactory, you can choose not to sign. Do you think I have or lack the guts to sign it?" Klein lampooned as he watched Bilt stand up. He received the pen and paper and handed it to Klein. The conditions on the piece of paper were few and simple. Most of them restricted Jayaman Sparrow's actions when acting as Amirius Revelt. It included, but wasn't limited to, voluntarily exposing any problems, not using his identity to engage in acts which were adversarial to Amirius, as well as not make any intimate contact with Miss Cynthia, etc. I thought such important figures wouldn't care about the chastity of their mistresses. This admiral is indeed an old-fashioned man. However, I'm not such a person either. Klein hid his curiosity and asked as though it was an academic question. What if Miss Cynthia chooses to make intimate contact with me? In between the lines, he was saying that being too distant or resistant made it easier for Cynthia to notice a problem. He was asking how he should balance the act. "It's fine," Amirius said without any expression. "During the contract's validity, you will not have any desire or lack the ability to do it when facing her. You can do that. This contract is rather powerful. Apart from a contract with spirit world creatures, this is the first time I'm seeing other contracts. Furthermore, the former used the power of the underworld. This contract is only between two parties. Is this a demigod beyonder power of Admiral Amirius, the Arbiter Pathway?" Klein shot a glance at the dates and discovered that it lasted 5 days. Is he confident that he will return within 5 days? Or is his level only capable of implementing a contract for 5 days? Klein read the conditions once again before taking the fountain pen and wrote the name, Jayaman Sparrow. With the final character written, he saw the words on the piece of paper emit a golden glow as they condensed into a resplendent luster. Amidst the resplendent luster, the piece of paper rapidly dissipated and vanished, as though it had fused with the world's rules. An invisible and faint gray fog gently rippled around him, as Klein clearly sensed layers of indescribable restrictions placed on him. These restrictions quickly melted into his body, temporarily becoming one with his spirit body and physical flesh. The gray fog can block out bad and good luck from external sources to a certain extent, but it's unable to screen a contract I signed. That's right. If it can screen it, the contract with the messenger wouldn't have been valid. Klein gazed at Amirius Revelt, once again in enlightenment. The Admiral had already converged his might as he produced a dark gold charm in his palm. On it were the symbols and magical labels representing the Sword of Judgment. Its entire body was converged and somber, giving one the feeling that it was part of a codex. "This is a high-level charm using my blood, a 4th epic ancient codex, and the royal family's grade 0 sealed artifact," Amirius said calmly. "Its name is Ninth Law. When it's injected with minute amounts of spirituality, it can produce a might that's similar to mine. This can be done even by ordinary people. Without it, you'll find it very difficult to pretend to be me. Indeed, the might I show in a disguised state is only superficial. It's fine fooling others usually, but once there's a need to shock and awe any subordinate, that would be useless." Klein secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Amirius continued, "With your present strength, you should be able to withstand its usage. Through it, you can indicate a necessary restriction on the target, making them be in an extremely disadvantageous state. This way, even if a demigod were to sound you out, you'll be able to scare him away. If no mishaps happen at the end of everything, and if you had no need to use it, then it will be yours to keep. It can be used for a year." Klein was first taken aback before he felt a strong sense of delight. He finally had another high-level charm ever since that time. He used up the one which was created with the mutated sun's sacred emblem. Although such an item had a time limitation and was single-use, a pro was that it didn't have any negative side effects. Of course, the stringent requirements that were needed to create one made them very rare in number. As expected of a demigod, he's a lot more generous than Bilt. Bribing a tramp and an adventurer at the pirate admiral level are different in cost. As Klein thought in happiness, he silently extended his palm and received the high-level charm named Ninth Law. Then he saw Amirius remove his belt. After a brief silence, Klein kept his embarrassment in control as he took off his clothes without an expression on his face. Soon, he had switched clothes with Amirius and had donned the dark blue starched admiral's uniform. After watching Amirius and Bilt walk off through a secluded path in the garden, Klein calmly adjusted his buttons and turned to look at the glass window. Under the dark night and the crimson moonlight, the glass window was like a mirror. It vaguely reflected Klein's present looks. He had black hair which was neatly combed back, blue and profound eyes, slightly drooping cheeks, a beardless face, and an old-fashioned and stern demeanor, all while dressed in a dark blue attire with a lanyard, medals, and epaulets. Klein twitched the corners of his mouth as he silently said to himself, "From this moment forth, I'm a Navy admiral."